While founders think scaling to the 19 billion in revenue takes decades of manual effort, Anthropic did it in 14 months by letting AI automate their growth experiments instead of hiring armies of marketers. This is especially impressive considering scaling B2B tech fast usually breaks operations, a pain I know well from having built go-to-market engines for enterprise SaaS. Now, here is the conversation detailing their strategy.
Tune in, listen up, it's marketing time. Bright ideas sparking, growing your mind. From strategies to big exec dreams, catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing Convo.
Welcome to the Marketing Execution Podcast. This is the show for tech founders and leaders building B2B products and technologies. We show you how to go further, faster to get the business results you need.
From strategies to big exec dreams, catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing Convo.
Mark, you know how everyone throws around the phrase fastest growing company ever? It's become almost meaningless at this point. But then I came across these numbers from Anthropic, and I genuinely had to double check them.
Oh yeah? What'd you find?
So get this. They went from $1 billion in annual recurring revenue at the start of 2025 to $19 billion just 14 months later. That's not a typo. 1 to 19 billion.
That's genuinely unprecedented. We're talking about adding the equivalent of a Snowflake or a Palantir every few months. Companies that took 15, 20 years to build that kind of revenue base.
Right. And here's what really got me thinking. Their head of growth, this guy Amol Avasare, he cold emailed Mike Krieger to get the job. No referral, no posting, just a cold email.
See, that's the thing people miss. The best growth people are already demonstrating growth skills before they even get the role. If you can't get someone's attention with an email, how are you going to get a customer's attention?
So what's actually driving this insane trajectory? Like, is it just that the product is magic and growth people are along for the ride?
That's the obvious assumption, right? But no, there are two things happening here that I think every founder needs to understand. First is what Amol calls success disasters, and second is how they're literally automating their own growth function with AI. Both of these they're not just interesting, they're kind of a preview of where all of us are headed.
Okay, success disasters. That sounds like a humble brag, but I'm guessing it's not?
Not at all. So imagine every chart is green, everything's up and to the right, and yet your team is absolutely drowning. That's what happens when you grow this fast. The infrastructure breaks, the processes break, the people break. He said 70% of his time is just firefighting these success disasters.
So it's not optimization work, it's triage.
Exactly. And this is where most growth teams would pivot to micro-optimizations. Squeeze out another 1% here, 2% there. At their scale, 1% is massive, but they're not doing that.
Wait, why not?
Because they think in exponentials, not linear. This is something I talk about a lot on the Marketing Execution Podcast, actually. Most companies plan linearly. You look at your product value today, you estimate maybe 30, 50% improvement over 2 years. That's how most roadmaps work.
Right, incremental gain.
But Anthropic's view is that their product value in 2 years will be 1,000 times what it is today. Not 30% more, 1,000x. When you believe that, optimizing for 1% gains feels almost irresponsible. You need to take bigger swings because the opportunity cost of playing small is enormous.
So they're flipping the typical growth ratio. Instead of 70% small bets and 30% big swings, they're doing the opposite.
Exactly. And here's the wild part. Their growth team built the Chrome extension that now powers a bunch of their key use cases. That's not typical growth work. That's product work. But they saw an opportunity, had an engineer who was bullish on it, and just went for it.
Okay, so that's the mindset shift. What about the automation piece? You mentioned they're automating growth itself?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. They have this internal initiative called CASH. Claude Accelerates Sustainable Hypergrowth. I know, the name is a bit much.
A little on the nose there.
But the concept is serious. They're using Claude to automate the entire growth experimentation loop, identifying opportunities, building features, testing quality, analyzing results, the whole cycle.
So the AI is coming up with what experiments to run?
Yes, and building them, and testing them. Right now, it's mostly copy changes and minor UI tweaks, but the win rate is comparable to what you'd expect from a junior PM with 2 or 3 years experience.
That's actually kind of terrifying and exciting at the same time.
It is, but here's the nuance. He said a few months ago this wasn't even possible. The models weren't good enough. Now, with Opus 4.6, they're seeing real results. And if you project that forward...
The exponential thing again.
Right. What's possible in 6 months is going to be dramatically different. But, and this is important, he also said that cross-functional stakeholder management is not going away. You still need humans to get 6 people in a room and aligned. That's the bottleneck that AI can't solve yet.
So the PM role isn't disappearing, it's just shifting.
Shifting dramatically. He made this really interesting observation. Engineers are getting the most leverage from AI tools right now. Like, a team of 5 engineers with Claude Code is operating like 15 or 20 engineers in the old world. But PM and design leverage hasn't scaled the same way. So suddenly, you have this ratio problem.
More engineering output than PMs can manage.
Exactly. So their solution is to deputize engineers as mini PMs for smaller projects. Anything under 2 weeks of engineering time, the engineer owns it end to end. Talks to legal, talks to stakeholders, drives it through.
That's a pretty significant culture shift.
It is, and it means product-minded engineers suddenly become unicorns. Their value goes up an order of magnitude. Same with PMs who can design or who have deep domain expertise in something specific.
So the advice for someone listening is go deep on something?
Go deep, be interdisciplinary, and stay adaptable. He said, when you join Anthropic, you need to throw out 50 to 70% of how you operated before. The old playbooks just don't apply.
That's fascinating. And honestly, a little scary for anyone who's built their career on a specific way of doing things.
It should be, but it's also liberating in a way. The constraints force focus. There's this phrase he used, freedom through constraints. When you don't have unlimited options, you have to pick the narrow path that actually matters.
Mark, that's a perfect segue, actually. Let's talk about what this means for a founder who doesn't have Anthropic's resources. How do you apply exponential thinking when you're bootstrapped or running on fumes?
You know, that question hits different when you actually sit with it. Because here's the thing most founders get wrong. They hear exponential thinking and they assume it means spend more, hire faster, swing bigger. But that's not it at all.
So what is it then? Because I'm guessing you're not about to tell everyone to go build their own Chrome extension.
No. Look, the Chrome extension thing is a perfect example of what not to copy. That worked because they had a specific engineer who was passionate about it. They had the infrastructure to support it. And frankly, they had the runway to absorb a failure. What you can take from that is the underlying principle.
Which is?
Which is that exponential thinking is really about opportunity cost awareness. It's asking yourself constantly, if I spend my time on this 2% optimization, what am I not doing? And is that thing I'm not doing potentially a 100x bet?
Okay, but here's where I push back. When you're bootstrapped, you don't have the luxury of swinging for 100x bets. You need revenue now. You need to keep the lights on.
Right, and this is where Amol's framework actually helps more than people realize. Remember what he said about 70% of his time being success disasters? Firefighting? That ratio flips when you're small.
How so?
When you're a 5-person startup, you don't have success disasters. You have survival disasters. So maybe 80% of your time is on the small to medium stuff, the cash flow, the immediate wins. But that 20%, needs to be protected like it's sacred.
Protected for the bigger swings.
Exactly. And here's what I've seen work. I know a company that was doing maybe $2 million in ARR, bootstrapped, tight team, and the founder told me something that stuck with me. She said, every Friday afternoon, I block 3 hours. No customer calls, no bug fixes, nothing operational. That time is for asking one question. What could make everything else irrelevant?
That's a hell of a question.
It is, and most weeks, nothing came of it. But one Friday, she realized that if she could automate their onboarding emails using AI, not just personalize them, but actually have Claude draft custom sequences based on user behavior, she could potentially cut her customer success team's workload in half.
And did it work?
Took her 3 months to build it properly. But yeah, she went from needing to hire 2 more CS people to actually having her existing team focus on expansion revenue instead of hand-holding. That's the exponential move. Not bigger, smarter.
So the takeaway isn't think in billions, it's think in multiples.
Yes, and here's the other piece that I think gets lost. Amol talked about the cash initiative, right? Claude automating their growth experimentation. And everyone hears that and thinks, oh great, another thing I can't afford to build.
I mean, yeah, that was my first reaction.
But here's what's actually accessible right now. You don't need to build a full automation loop. You can start with what I call assisted experimentation. You use Claude or whatever tool you prefer to generate hypotheses, to analyze your existing data and surface patterns you missed, to draft test variations faster than you could yourself.
So the human is still in the loop, but the loop is faster.
Much faster. And the win rate thing he mentioned, where the automated system performs like a junior PM with 2 or 3 years experience, that's not nothing. If you're a solo founder or a tiny team, having a junior PM equivalent running in the background, even if you're reviewing everything, that's a massive force multiplier.
Okay, I want to drill into something else he said that I think has huge implications. This idea that engineers are getting the most leverage from AI tools right now, more than PMs, more than designers. What does that mean for a founder who's maybe not technical?
It means you need to rethink your hiring priorities. And I don't mean go hire a bunch of engineers. I mean, look for those unicorns he described, the product-minded engineer, the PM who can actually ship code, the designer who understands systems.
The interdisciplinary people.
Right, because in this world where 5 engineers with Claude code operate like 15 or 20 engineers in the old world, your bottleneck isn't engineering capacity anymore. Your bottleneck is knowing what to build and getting alignment on it.
Which is classic PM work.
Classic PM work. But here's the twist. If your engineers can handle PM responsibilities for anything under 2 weeks of work, suddenly you need fewer dedicated PMs. But the PMs you do have need to be exceptional at the stuff AI can't do yet.
The stakeholder alignment stuff, getting 6 people in a room.
Exactly. And user insight, deep domain expertise, the things that require genuine human judgment and relationship building. That's where the value accrues now.
So for someone listening who's thinking about their own career, their own startup, what's the move?
Go deep on something specific. Become genuinely excellent at one thing that matters. And stay adaptable, because Amol said it best. You need to throw out 50 to 70% of how you operated before. The old playbooks don't apply.
That's terrifying and liberating at the same time.
It is both. And I think that's actually the right emotional response. If you're not a little scared, you're not paying attention. But if you're only scared, you're missing the opportunity.
Freedom through constraints.
Freedom through constraints. When you accept that the rules have changed, you stop wasting energy fighting that reality, and you can focus on figuring out the new game.
Mark, this is exactly the kind of reframe I think people need. We've talked about why exponential thinking matters even when you're small, how to protect time for bigger swings, and why the interdisciplinary people are becoming unicorns. Now I want to get practical. Let's dig into the actual tactics, the specific things someone can do next week to start operating this way. What does the first week look like?
Okay, so first thing, remember that founder I mentioned who blocks Friday afternoons? Let's steal that, but make it even simpler. Week 1, day 1, you block 90 minutes. That's it. 90 minutes where you ask yourself one question.
What could make everything else irrelevant?
Exactly. But here's the trick. You don't just sit there staring at the wall. You come in with data. Before that 90 minutes, you spend maybe 20 minutes looking at your numbers. Where are customers dropping off? What's your biggest time sink? What task do you dread most?
So you're priming the pump before you do the big thinking.
Right. And look, most weeks, nothing earth-shattering will come out of it. That's fine, but you're building the muscle. You're training yourself to zoom out.
Okay, so that's the mindset piece. What about the actual automation stuff? Not everyone can build what Anthropic built.
No, but here's what anyone can do today, literally today. You set up what I call an assisted experimentation loop. Step 1, you take your biggest conversion problem. Maybe it's your sign-up flow. Maybe it's your onboarding emails. Whatever it is, you pick one.
Just one.
Just one. Step 2, you feed Claude or whatever tool you use all the context. Your current copy, your conversion rates, who your customer is, and you ask it to generate 10 variations.
And then you test them.
You test the 3 best ones. Not all 10. You use your judgment to filter. That's the human in the loop part. But the generation, the brainstorming, that used to take a team a week. Now it takes an hour.
Okay, I love this. Give me a real example of a company doing something like this.
So there's this B2B SaaS company, about 50 employees, selling project management software. Nothing fancy. They were stuck at maybe 8% free to paid conversion. The PM there, she started using Claude to analyze her onboarding data. Not build anything, just analyze.
What did she find?
She found that users who created their second project within 48 hours converted at 3 times the rate. But nobody was prompting them to do that. The onboarding flow just kind of ended after the first project.
So the fix was obvious once she saw it.
Dead obvious. She added one email, one in-app prompt, both written by Claude based on her brand guidelines. Took her maybe 4 hours total, including testing. Conversion went from 8 to 12% in 6 weeks.
That's a 50% lift.
From 4 hours of work. And here's the thing. She told me she never would have found that insight manually. She had the data, it was sitting there, but she didn't have time to dig through it. The AI did the digging.
So the takeaway is, use AI to find the patterns you're too busy to see yourself.
That's one piece. The other piece is the framework Amol talked about with the 2-week rule. If a project is under 2 weeks of engineering time, the engineer owns it end to end. They talk to legal, they talk to stakeholders, they ship it.
And the PM only steps in for bigger stuff.
Or controversial stuff. Use your head. But the default shifts. And for a small startup, this is huge because you probably don't have a dedicated PM anyway. Your engineers are your PMs for the small stuff. So formalize that. Make it explicit.
I can see how that would speed things up.
It does. And it frees up whoever is doing PM work to focus on the bigger questions. the user insights, the market positioning, the stuff AI can't do yet.
Okay, so we've got the weekly thinking block, the assisted experimentation loop, the 2-week ownership rule. What's the third thing?
The third thing is about hiring, or really about what you look for in people. Amol called them unicorns, the product-minded engineer, the PM who can ship code, the designer who understands systems.
The interdisciplinary people.
Yes, and here's the practical part. When you're interviewing, stop asking, can you do this job? Start asking, can you do the job next to yours? If an engineer can't articulate why a feature matters to users, that's a red flag. If a PM has never pushed a commit, even a tiny one, ask why.
You're looking for range.
Range plus depth. Go deep on one thing. Be dangerous in 2 others. That's the profile that wins right now.
This reminds me of something Miro did early on. They didn't just hire designers who could push pixels. They hired designers who understood collaboration workflows, who had run remote teams themselves.
Perfect example. And that's why their product felt different from day one. It wasn't just a whiteboard. It was built by people who lived the problem.
So the hiring filter is lived experience plus cross-functional skills.
And adaptability. That's maybe the most important one. Amol said you have to throw out 50 to 70% of how you operated before. The people who thrive are the ones who can do that without having an identity crisis.
Easier said than done.
Way easier said than done, but you can screen for it. Ask candidates about a time they had to completely change their approach. Not tweak it, change it. How did they handle that emotionally? Did they resist or did they get curious?
Curiosity over comfort.
That's the phrase, curiosity over comfort. Put that on your wall.
Okay, Mark, we've covered a ton of ground today. We talked about exponential thinking, protecting time for big swings, the rise of interdisciplinary talent, and now the actual tactics, the 90-minute block, the assisted experimentation loop, the 2-week rule, and hiring for range. Can you pull it all together for us? What's the through line here?
All right, let me bring this all together. We started by looking at Anthropic's insane growth trajectory, 1 to 19 billion in 14 months. And the key insight wasn't that they have magic technology, it was how they think about time and opportunity cost. They flipped the typical ratio. Instead of 70% small optimizations and 30% big swings, they do the opposite. They think in exponentials, not linear improvements. And that mindset shift changes everything about how you allocate your energy.
Right. And then we talked about how to apply that when you don't have Anthropic's resources.
Exactly. Protect that 20% for bigger questions. Use AI to find patterns you're too busy to see yourself. Let engineers own smaller projects end to end. And hire for range plus depth. People who can go deep on one thing, but are dangerous in 2 others. The old playbooks are breaking down. The people who thrive are the ones who stay curious instead of clinging to what worked before.
Mark, after everything we've discussed today, what's the one thing you really hope people don't forget?
The game has changed, but most people are still playing by yesterday's rules. The founders who win from here won't be the ones with the best playbooks. They'll be the ones willing to throw their playbooks away and figure out what actually works now. Stop optimizing for comfort. Start optimizing for learning speed. That's the only sustainable advantage left. The Marketing Execution Podcast is produced by Growth Stage Marketing. We are on a mission to see your company reach wild success using marketing pods.
Too big, accept dreams. Catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing Convo.
Thank you for listening and being a part of the marketing execution movement and community. To learn how growth stage marketing clients reach more buyers and drive business impact, go to growthstage.marketing. That's growthstage.marketing.